All right, welcome back, Stretch Effect people. We are working on some DNS today. So DNS, a lot of acronyms in our planet, but DNS is Dynamic Neuromuscular Stabilization. It's from the Prague Rehabilitation School of Sciences. I've been blessed to be able to work with Dr. Michael Rentala, who's here in San Diego, and learn from him directly. There's very few instructors, and so he's one of the best. He's a chiropractor here. He's on the sports medicine team for the PGA Tour. Very bright guy and very caring. So thank you to him for the education and information that he's provided to me. But ultimately, it's a fantastic way to understand core training, core function, really more than anything else. And what we're looking at is being able to create stability through the core. So a lot of people would traditionally, you would see them trying to do some sort of drawing in maneuver, okay, for your TVA or your transverse abdominis. But for stability purposes, that's not necessarily the best thing. And when we look at high level athletes, it's ultimately the mobility that you need, especially in rotation from the hips and then thoracic spine, coupled with the core stability so that you have linking and so that you can have force generation between those. If we lose it somewhere along the line, which a lot of us do, that's where bad stuff happens. That's where we start dumping power. That's where we start to get compensation. That's where injuries start to occur. So foundationally, the mobility work is key. We got to create space. That space creates opportunity. Once we have opportunity, it's what do we do with it? So now it's all about the nervous system and breath work. So in that regard, what we're going to do is keep you in a very safe environment, i.e. the ground, and train your core here first. The higher level, sexy movements, all that kind of stuff require this function first. If you don't have this, this is where you start. And I'm gonna tell you that most people need to start here with their training, quote unquote. So breath work will be another thing that we cover that we'll go more in depth with. We'll have a little bit of a primer here in this video, and then the core exercises are really what we're gonna start with. Now there's a lot of variation, there's a lot of advancements between some of the exercises that you can do, but with this one, we're gonna start with a few key basic core fundamental movements. Now these movements are all based on developmental kinesiology. So what that means is it's from when you started to initially develop your motor programs as a baby. So when you just were able to only lift up your head, whenever you were to look at something and go grasp it, and then to be able to actually rotate, to go up onto a half kneeling, to go up to a full kneeling, to go up to a standing, and then to be actually have gait and walk. Right? So those are the very, very first motor programs. And as we become into adulthood, we've kind of created new motor programs based on our environments. So if those are more of a sedentary environment, or if those are more of a seated population, and even if you are just doing any one posture for any extended period of time, ultimately we're going to create compensation for that because the body's goal is stability. And so it just tries to make its work easy. And so the whole concept here is that if we put you in these same developmental positions, these are your oldest motor programs. And motor programs are kind of unique. So you kind of want to think about it like favorite books, okay? So if you have your favorite book and I come to you and I say, hey, don't worry about that favorite book. This is your new favorite book. You're going to say, I might take a look at it. I might look into it. I might even read it. But then it's gonna take a long time for that to become your favorite book. And even then, when you really just think about, hey, what's your favorite book? You're gonna go back to the original one, because that's what you really know and understand. And so if we have only a short period of time that we really had these optimal motor programs, but they were the initial ones, and then we've kind of had all these new books that we've put into the motor programs on top of that, it's very easy for us to forget and go to the ones that we've read the most, that you've told yourself for 20 years, these are my favorite books. When in all reality, we have to reintroduce some new information, some new content. And so if we can expedite or speed up the process in which we can access these motor programs, that's what's gonna allow this core function to become innate, or something that you don't even have to think about. Initially, it's very consuming because there's a lot of control that's required with it. So you have to have a lot of body awareness. Once you get past that stage, you can actually think about other things. You can be more calm and relaxed. You can have distractions around. Initially, I don't really recommend that. You kind of got to be in the zone. You really want to be focused. You want to be attuned to what's working, what's not working, those types of things. So be patient with these. They're not very simple. They are more complex, but with some good guidance, some good cueing, you'll be able to actually create these to make them normal, make them easy, make them just like you do a plank or something of that nature. So we're gonna start with just some crocodile breathing. So we're looking for 360 expansion when we talk about breathing. A lot of people talk about belly breathing, but we want to really make sure we use 360 breathing with that. One of the devices that I love the most is this Core 360 belt. They even sell them now where they have a sensor and you can get kind of hooked up to some technology and you can see how well you're maintaining your intra-abdominal pressure or your IAP while doing actual movements or exercises, which is ultimately how we want to use it. And so with this, it's just good kinesthetic feedback. It's just a good cueing device. So I definitely recommend these for people who are learning. It just allows it to understand what you're feeling. Because at first it's very hard to find it. It's very hard to, am I doing it? Am I not doing it? I'm not really sure. And if you're by yourself, it's almost impossible. So having a device like that or just using your hands can also work, but when you're doing the exercises, not so much. So with crocodile breathing, we're also gonna try and create some parasympathetic tone with the body, and we're gonna do that with rhythmic breathing. So in this example today, we're gonna use box breathing. So we're gonna do like a 5 by 5 by 5 by 5. So box breathing, 5-second inhale, 5-second pause, 5-second exhale, 5-second pause. So a lot of Navy SEALs, a lot of people who are in extreme environments that they have to calm their bodies down will learn these different types of breathing techniques, and it's fantastic. They're wonderful. You can do this sitting at your desk. You can do this when people are screaming at you and you just have to calm yourself down. But in this instance, we're gonna use it to prime that expansion so that we can really do that. And we're gonna use that rhythmic breathing, the box breathing with crocodile breath. Now, crocodile breath is gonna be on the ground, so we're gonna get feedback from the ground. And so as we go into this position, I'm gonna have my hands in front, resting, and I'm just gonna kind of relax a little bit. Make sure that your shoulders are down and back so you're not all hunched up. And we're gonna take some few breaths here. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna hold that for a 5 count. 4, 3, 2, 1. We're gonna exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're gonna pause, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now we're gonna do that for about a minute or so. So you're gonna kind of go through several breaths in that regard. 20 seconds, so we get 3 breaths or so. And just kind of get your body set and ready. So here we go. All right, well, there's really nothing much more exhilarating than watching someone do crocodile breathing, but we want to just show you some basic expansion that can take place with that. Next, we're gonna go into what they refer to as a 4.5 month prone position. Their names of their exercises are all related to the developmental sequence. So this would be something that you would see a baby do around 4.5 months. And it's fantastic. I have 2 kids. If you guys have kids at home, once you start to learn these and you see them as the kids are developing, it's fantastic because you can see which stages they're in. And so it's just kind of nice to actually see the reality of these postures happen naturally because it is a completely natural thing that occurs as the development of the nervous system occurs. So 4.5 months prone. Sometimes like to have 2 mats or even a thicker mat. Inside of the knee can be a little sensitive sometimes. If I only have 1, I'll sometimes just put that part on there. Now, with these, we're gonna have hands on the ground, okay? And we're gonna try and make sure that our hands all the way through. So even if I have pocketing through here, that's gonna be something that we're gonna try and pay attention to so that we have equal parts shared throughout. Now from that position, I'm also going to try and get my hips neutral as possible. So I may even start to feel some tension on the inside part of my thighs. I'm then gonna work on losing that lumbar. So I'm gonna get more of a posterior tuck. When I start to do this, now no laughing because I will shake a little bit here. These are actually really tough exercises and I should theoretically practice them more often. But get that spine in alignment, posterior tuck, get that inhalation so we have that full expansion, and we're gonna hold this position. Now we wanna make sure that we're using the ground as resistance, so I'm actually trying to push or pull in the ground and torque with my hips and maintain that, and you'll start to see I start to work here. And so I can maintain my intra-abdominal pressure while talking. It takes a long time to be able to do that, just being able to find that space. I have pretty good body awareness, so I'll just be patient with it as you get through. And then you'll come all the way back down. Initially, 10, 15, 20 seconds. The biggest thing we're looking for here is that there's no compensation taking place. So when you start to hold your breath, rapid eye blinking, clenching teeth, really just like trying way too hard, you're done. So just understand that what we're trying to do is rewrite a new book. And if you start taking pages out of the old book, it's gonna end up the same. And so we wanna make sure that we stop before that threshold occurs, okay? So then I would go the opposite direction. So I would get both sides. Okay, so we'd be the same cues, palms in the ground. We're gonna create some tension through the ground. I'm gonna rotate that hip so I challenge that openness of that. I'm gonna get a posterior tuck. Now, before I'm loaded, I'm gonna come up, I'm gonna get that fill, I'm gonna hang on for dear life. And I'm still breathing, shallow breathing, while still maintaining that IAP. Good. All right. So that's the 4.5 month prone. Now I'm gonna get some sideline postures here. So with these guys, you see the side plank all the time. Most people aren't in joint centration, so centration is more alignment. So when we talk about force transmission, being able to get our body to produce force, which is ultimately every exercise you want to talk about, every sport you want to play, picking up your kids without hurting yourself, all of that stuff. We want to be in alignment. That way the muscles don't have to try and compensate for us, because they'll try really, really hard. That's when we get strains, tears, those types of things. And so for us, we want to make sure that it's posture first, control, then you can talk about intensity, then you can talk about advancing the technique. So I'm gonna kind of have this split stance. First thing I'm gonna check is my shoulder. I'm gonna have that ground, the hand into the ground. Once again, I'm using that as feedback. I'm gonna kind of scoop that shoulder blade back underneath. Now from here, we just gotta make sure, now here I'm actually straight. So I'm gonna get that, so check that. You might have to reposition your shoulder, okay? Neck-wise, if you start to get some neck stuff, you can actually turn and look into the hand. It'll sometimes offload the neck a little bit. I'm gonna hang out looking at you guys. But now I'm gonna lever through here. I'm gonna get that expansion, so I'm gonna create that inhalation, and I'm gonna load it. Same thing here, I'm challenging this. Challenging here, challenging here. We're gonna feel all those. I can put my hands through here. I can wave to you guys. A lot of people don't know what to do with their hands. It's all fine and dandy. Focus on the muscles that are working. And come back down. Once again, these are gonna start 10, 15 seconds, go up to 30 seconds. Once you get past like pretty much 30 seconds, I'll want you to start advancing those techniques, and so we'll have later videos with some of the progressions with those. So we're gonna do some break dancing and flip to the other side. So once we get through here, kind of go through all your cues again. Okay, where am I at? Hands down. I'm gonna put feedback into the ground. I'm immediately gonna feel this fire up. Now my shoulder is stable. You'll get a lot of people that kind of just lean on their shoulder and then they elevate. That's a no-go. So now we're gonna get the shoulder down. We're gonna make sure our hips are in a good position. I'm gonna get that expansion, and then we're gonna come up through here. Once again, checking where we're at. And I like to self-palpate so I can feel what's working, just so I can get feedback. Sometimes a mirror is good too, so you can actually see if you're out of alignment just a little bit. And you'll see in later videos, we'll have me actually critiquing my business partner, Chris, and we'll kind of show you those cues a little more in depth. Okay, so that's the sideline posture. Now for 3.5 months supine. So with this exercise, you'll see a lot of progressions, regressions with this. So first thing here is when I raise my legs, I'm gonna have some external rotation. So you'll kind of think of a lot of people going like this. You'll start to see space and gapping through there. So first thing is that we need to be able to bring our legs up while being able to maintain our lumbar position. If it follows, that's no good. So we're gonna really make sure that this is here, and we're gonna have a little bit of external rotation. Now, in addition to that, we don't wanna be holding with our quads. So our rectus femoris, is gonna wanna do work here, especially if it's commonly used or overactive. So if that's not something you can do, you can use the wall as feedback. So in that instance, you would kind of start really close to it, come through here, and then that way my legs can completely relax. I have no weight or pressure, and this is a really good learning position for this exercise. And back we go. But from here, what we'll do is we'll start one leg at a time, maintaining this posture, really keeping that lumbar down. From here, I'm just gonna now challenge extension. So what I'm trying to do is keep my rib cage down and extend the arms overhead. And I'm extending my lever so the load essentially gets heavier as we do that. Now, things that we can use as feedback, so if you don't have multiple people, I can use a small weight and I can set it really low on my abdomen so that I can say, hey, am I actually maintaining this pressure? Because you'll start to feel it go. And then am I actually keeping my ribs down as I do this? You can sometimes use a little pillow for your head or a pad just to help support it. And then in addition to that, once you start progressing, you can add load. And we'll just hang out and spend time in the most difficult part of the posture. So that just be in the extension right before it touches the ground. And then if you really want to kick it up, you can come up into some more flexion and see how far you can get back. And this is when you really start to work. And there's some really fun progressions from this posture. There's some great flows from this posture. It's a really good movement to create that anterior core stability. And so you'll see this used a lot. And so the last one is called the bear. So we're on all fours. And through here, what we want to do is really use that feedback once again. So I'm going to kind of be pushing into the ground, checking our positions, creating that intra-abdominal pressure, creating that activation through here. Now I have some work that I'm doing. So initially I would just statically hold this and challenge your breathing while maintaining your intra-abdominal pressure. From there, you can start to go just slightly offloading. You'll find the hands to be much more difficult than the legs. And you will see, this is shake and bake. This is a lot of work. And there's of course even more progressions with that as well. I'm breathing now. So DNS is something that can be seemingly quite docile. It's very low level. There's not a lot of equipment required. It's more of an understanding of your body and what you're feeling. And so mirrors, other people, kinesthetic cues, using a weight for feedback, stuff like that's fantastic. At the same time, you can make it very high level. You can make people sweat and burn, out of breath, those types of things. I have already worked out today though. So, you know, be patient with it, focus form first, and then build endurance within that posture. Then you can go into more of the progressions where you start either making it more unstable by reducing your footprint, or creating it more of a dynamic with a movement, or where you're adding load, those types of things. That would all be the goal there. DNS, absolutely fantastic. It's changed the way that I do all my core programs. It's changed the way I coach people to breathe and control themselves when they're doing squats and deadlifts and bench press and everything else. So it's a great way to increase your force transmission and to create stability for your body, which ultimately makes you stronger and safer. So that's a quick little hack for you guys, and let us know how that program goes. As always here at Stretch Effect, we hope that you move free and live well. Thank you much.